the Indie of the Week.
Oh.
And this week, it's an interesting little Spanish Civil War one from a company that is so exquisitely new, shockingly new, that they only set up a form of website and store within the past month or so.
Wow.
I have to ask, which Spanish Civil War is it? Because they are kind of want to do the boogaloo.
Is the Spanish
big one.
If you Google Spanish Civil War, you will find this.
The prequel to World War II.
Yeah, very much so. This is we've got weapons and arms and munition, and we want to see how they work. So the Spanish Civil War, nationalists against Republicans, nationalists backed up obviously by fascist states of Italy and Germany, and the Republicans backed up by a whole host of people, including the international battalions as well. So with the wild geese were over there, loads of people kicking around from Ireland and all sorts. People who weren't allowed to get involved for various reasons all went and got involved for various reasons.
Here's the thing. We are Irish. Pay us money, give us beer, we will fight.
Oh, there's no payment. These are volunteer brigades.
Voluntarily fighting.
So, yeah.
Okay, they were maybe having a bad day.
No, it's one of these things. It was class struggle, political struggle, religious struggle, all of this and so much more. So it sort of came down the divide. Ebro, which I believe is an actual place, has started this website. In fact, actually, the About Us is probably a nice place to start. Now, this is going to be Googly translated because I think the site only exists via the medium of Spanish.
Right, yeah.
But assuming it converts, yay! It's really interesting. So Jordy was interested in the Spanish Civil War and did various bits and bobs and noticed that the wargaming community, especially in Spain itself, people know an awful lot about World War II, maybe bits about World War I, but then the kids who are getting into historics and don't really know a huge amount about what happened in their own country, about the wars that were fought. And obviously Spain wasn't involved in World War II. They were settling after this. They're one of those nations that had enough on their plate after 3 or 4 years of warfare, followed by what happened with Franco afterwards. So the idea was to encourage the people who are getting into wargaming to explore what was essentially a national war, a local issue for them, and see how it goes that way. Which I think is a really fantastic basis. You know, if you're going to start a company to do something, you have a real drive behind it, rather than just going, I think I can make some money out of this. It's part and parcel of both educating and exploring it. So the designers are all from Spain as well, I believe, and it's just this idea of a sort of a group of people getting together to try and promote their own little window into history, which I just really like.
Yep.
I mean, it is a curious time period because, you would have had all the interwar weapons and things that they could be laying their hands on that were essentially experimental at the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was exactly it.
You had the Germans shipping over Panzers.
Wow.
Well, if we'll start with the vehicles then, since you asked me so nicely. So the Panzer
look at that.
Panzer 1 got its rollout. So these are 28mm 3D printed. They don't sell the STLs or that sort of thing. I believe they're 3D printed. I haven't seen anything that says that they're recast into another material.
Right.
But you can see here the images. Unfortunately, they don't get impegulated. I have stolen some off their face page to show you some of the figures later on, though. But here you have the Panzer 1 with a couple of different turret options on it as well. So you can have those. And I mean, combined arms, the sort of the early prototype of Blitzkrieg. I'm not going to go too much into Blitzkrieg, but I know they did use the fighter lead up before, or the aerial lead up before the tanks and then infantry came in a very sort of piecemeal but sort of prototype stage, as if testing it out. I don't know if Germany sent advisors.
Pretty sure they did.
I know they definitely sent munitions and the like.
They probably weren't supposed to send staff,
Yeah.
but they probably had staff right back.
I mean, you're handling the delivery here. Just give them word whenever you land as well. Because, I mean, otherwise, you've got some Spanish guy going, "You have given me a tank. What do?"
Well, there's no point in a war like that of just handing over the weapons and going, have fun, or use them to your ability. Like, you're seeing that recently as well with shipments of arms going east.
Yeah.
And, there is advisors, there's a lot of stuff happening in the background that you don't really hear about. So it's certainly, this is almost like the prototype to what happened in early World War II, as well as the tactics and how the technology was perceived it was going to evolve.
It's like this. Obviously, the Soviets were sending stuff out and about as well. And again, some nice little turret options. There's little commanders as well for the open turrets that are available on the vehicle page, so you can have your nationalists popping out the top of a hatch. There's also this, which is a really nice armored car.
I will say the prices are incredibly reasonable.
Oh yeah.
Not bad at all in any way, shape, or form. Now, when we get into some of the infantry, none of the infantry come with heads.
Okay.
There are multiple head packets with multiple different types of hat to define specific units within the conflict. So whenever you are buying them, you have to take into account that the bodies are all complete, but you will need to order the heads separately.
Yeah.
But again, the Bilbao armored car is really nice. And can be used for both factions.
It's interesting that it has what would be considered at the time a large cannon in the passenger seat.
I wonder what that is.
Don't know.
It's like a blunderbuss, isn't it?
It has the flare end that you would see on sort of ACACs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
some kind of flak.
I'm assuming somebody is frantically typing as to exactly what that is into the comments.
Was it a particularly? I mean, obviously, no war is well balanced, but was it a well balanced fight between the different forces in?
No. No/yes.
Right. I'm expecting to hear the words "ruffle stomped."
No, initially, because the nationalists attempted a coup. The coup failed, then they kicked off. So originally, the initial sort of breakdown was like 500,000 people on the Republican side and like less than 100,000 on the national side.
Wow.
But throughout the course of the war, that changed to almost equal, and then the nationalists went slightly ahead and then they won. But the initial thing, I suppose the alternative is the people who are attempting the coup, some of the generals and the like, were obviously high-ranking military figures. So even though they had a smaller amount of people, there may have been better training there may have been better tactics and organization, and access to things like locations of ammunition and that sort of thing. So it may have swayed in the long run.
So it's an interesting one to follow in terms of gaming in that respect, because you've got the fluctuating numbers, but also the different types of scenarios that they'd find themselves in, the battles and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's a rule set for it, do some asymmetric battles. So early war, mid war, late war, and rebalance what each person gets depending on what stage of the war you're at. Could be interesting. I'm
not sure how much it changed within it.
Right.
You'd have to do a fair bit of, John's
John is off.
John's looked up the gun, haven't?
That's a flamethrower.
That's wow. Okay. Cool.
That's how that magic happens.
That's one way to clear out a city street.
Funnily enough, tanks-encyclopedia.com has a very good article on this vehicle.
Who would have thought?
Trust John to be fit to do fast research. Who would have thought?
Nice. Right. So here we have the first, the national side. Now, some of these aren't filled yet, so you can see they have a space for Italians. There aren't any Italians in it. Like I say, brand spanking new indie as far as the things go. But you can see different styles of headwear, whether it's the sort of the soft tops, the turbans, the beret styles as well, or the peak cap. So you've got all of those. And some of them are definitely recognizable. I have no idea what that is, but that Matador style hat, I think you still see as part of their Spanish.
Part of the police, isn't it?
Yeah.
The police or the National Guard or something.
Yeah, I've seen round about. We'll crack one of those open since we're here.
I do like that they've made it very clear as to which side of the conflict they're on before you even click through to it.
I guess
coming to it. Yeah,
he's obviously trying to educate the locals, but at the same time, he's obviously trying to make it so that people like us can come along and go, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I now know what to get.
Yeah, we basically have an idiot's guide to the Spanish Civil War.
Like him checking papers.
No, he's reading an idiot's guide to the Spanish Civil War.
It's an idiot's guide to how to use a submachine gun, because that's clearly what it is, the manual for the gun he's holding.
Well, here's a question. So at this...
Why is this all in German?
Well, John, here's one for you. So in this period... Now, I don't know...
Ask me about this period.
Well, it's more about the weaponry of the pre-war. You know, what sort of weapons would you look at? Because that guy's riding around with a lance.
Well, let's put it into perspective. The last cavalry charge was 1942.
Okay.
So, yes. This is the period where a few countries, particularly Russia and Germany and Britain, kind of knew what they were doing with armored vehicles, whereas everybody else either couldn't afford to build them or were buying them off those three other countries.
Or told Mr. Christie no.
It's the crossover of modernization for a lot of countries.
Yeah, the sort of the late 20s, early 30s was that period of there's new stuff coming online. Okay, how do we figure it out? Because what happens in most militaries is, well, particularly modern militaries, and the Americans are a good example for this. What comes first, doctrine or the equipment?
Yeah.
Today, it's doctrine drives equipment. Back in the day, it was, we've built this thing, but we've also built 10,000 of them, so you're going to have to figure out how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was one of those things, because America in the end of World War One, interwar period, was buying French stuff. They were using Renault FTs and all that. They had them by the 100, and they were making up tactics based on that before they were starting to build their own and then figuring out what doctrine was. So Spanish Civil War is really, from a very surface level perception of it, like, I always seen it as these countries are feeding into this civil war to see what works.
Yes. That's
kind of what it felt like. You know, it doesn't matter what the outcome of this civil war is, but we want to know what works.
Mm-hmm. It's field testing, extreme field testing of your equipment.
Yeah. Unfortunately, sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, recently we didn't know how good Javelin was. It's only in the last, year or so.
Coming up on 2, is it not?
Day 400 and something.
Anywho.
The sculpting on these is phenomenal as well. I really like all the detail that's been worked into them. And I like that you've got so many, even with the sets of heads, you've not got sort of generic looking characters. You've got lots of them with different expressions and things like that. So if you are playing something a little bit more small scale, as I always tend to say, if you're playing small scale, you want to have individuals, don't you, really?
Yeah.
Kind of
it is interesting that the baseline uniform for both sides would have been basically identical. And then it's the hats that tell you, is he friendly?
Well, easiest thing to see.
You'll see later on with some of the Republican side where it's a bit more militia, and people in dungarees and just regular slacks and shirts and that sort of thing.
Here is rifle, bad people that way.
That type of thing. Yes, I want you to always translate that. I don't know why you keep asking me, but thank you.
Lots of really good poses as well.
Yeah. And I mean, it does exactly what it says in the tin. You don't have people firing, you've got them assaulting. I'm sure there was a film about the Spanish Civil War with, I want to say it was Cary Grant, but I can't honestly remember. I want to say it's called Wild Geese, but I know it's not Wild Geese because that's South Africa thing. But anyway, watching that film, that old American one, obviously it's slanted towards America, as these things are. It focuses on somebody's come in to fight in the international battalions, but there's an awful lot of warfare because Spain's very mountainous and rocky in places. There's an awful lot of, you're not worried about squad-based maneuvers on flat ground. There was an awful lot of sort of guerrilla tactics and engagements.
I can imagine,
engagements over very, very rocky ground. So having people sort of crawling and creeping and sneaking their way through that sort of landscape gives you a really interesting perspective. And like I say, the sculpting work in these are gorgeous.
Yeah. Well, I would say for this idea, this concept, I'd say I can count off maybe 4 locations in the world where I would be really curious as to what happened. So, number one, obviously, this Spanish Civil War. I'd love to know what was happening in China because I know there was war happening there as well.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what was happening in the Middle East. So, like out and around Iraq, places like that. And then Brazil. Did Brazil get involved at all?
In the Spanish Civil War, or general?
No, just in World War II.
What was Brazil doing at the time?
Yeah. There are big parts of the world where you never hear about it, and you don't know what was going on there.
South America definitely got involved in bits and pieces.
South America was having its own Barney at the time, wasn't it?
Was it?
Probably.
I've never heard of it. Never heard about it.
Like these charging priest style.
I'm hearing Deus Vult in my soul.
Well, there's 3 of them, so it's enough for crusade.
they all look a little Che Guevara.
Yeah, just a touch. I see what you mean. This is some of your more partisan-looking people now.
Oh no, these are still.
Fair enough.
Uniform of paddies.
Fair enough. Sorry.
That's.
God, the Shona.
That's a cool-looking gun.
Is it a Shona?
I'm pretty sure that's a Shona.
Yeah.
Is it now?
Shoshats.
Shusha.
It was a piece of garbage.
Well, the magazine was a piece of garbage. The rest of the gun functioned as a gun, but the magazine's a piece of crap.
Well, trench warfare with an open-sided magazine with a leaf spring, was it, of some sort, like a zigzag one?
Magazines are leaf spring fed, anyways.
Yeah. So not the best plan. Thanks, France.
So anyway, leaving aside the nationalists, the Republican side, National Brigade, nothing in there. No Irish yet. Terrible. I don't think there's any of the commissars, but there's definitely stuff in Republican and
the regular militia.
And the militia. So as you can see here, more the same sort of style of uniform, which is what happens during a civil war. This is interesting because it shows that there's a definite, I'm not going to say sculpting style, but it's almost like the dollies have been made as if they could be made multi-part. Which means because they're 3D printed, when they're printing things out solid, that you've got them, you're good to go. These additional ones for the assault guard means you might be able to convert some other bits and pieces that you've got around. Depending on scaling, obviously.
The style of them is very reminiscent of like Wargames Atlantic's like style as well, which I think is quite nice.
I could see if this company did well, I could see Wargames Atlantic having a look in, because I think this sort of thing would definitely be up their street.
Yeah, trying to fill the gaps in history. Kind of thing.
That would be a good partnership for them.
Yeah, well, especially they've done hard plastics with a few other companies as well. So maybe hard plastic Spanish Civil War wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility.
I like the heavy weapon crews.
Yeah, some nice support weapons, mortar. And
is this more of those I couldn't find a Hotchkiss in 28mm for ages and now they're all over the
everywhere,
place.
John. They are. I'm not saying that's how I found them, but it's like the world is taunting me now.
It's like we were saying on our way to Expo, our phones are listening to us, feeding it back to marketing companies. Maybe it filters down eventually.
God, I would hate listening to people like me and Jerry who's just like, God, I wish I had a Hotchkiss heavy machine gun.
God, everybody in the world seems to want a Hotchkiss. We should probably get on that immediately. So you can see the rest of the infantry are fairly standard. If I go to the militia, though, we can see some of the variations for the militiamen. So again, Hotchkiss, but this time, shirtless, just put the webbing over the top. Or just wearing regular clothing.
Carlos is in from the fields.
That type of thing. And I mean, for militia, it's great. But also, if you're doing interwar stuff and you're looking for just generic armed insurgents So French partisans, Polish militia, whatever it happens to be. It's another good range.
Yeah.
So five current bodies and sort of there, and again, nice variety of sculpts.
I am wondering, are they single piece, or is this something that you're going to be doing some building to?
Heads are separate, and then I think everything else is one part prints.
So,
A bit of cleaning
it
up
does,
maybe, but other than that, yeah.
they must have particular models then for those arms.
For those arms, yeah. I mean, hopefully.
Maybe the arms are separate too.
Could be.
That's kind of what I'm wondering about. Because again, that increases your posability. But very nice.
It's an interesting little range and a fascinating period that we don't really sort of delve into a huge amount.
Yeah.
That and interwar both get overshadowed by what happened on either side. Well, I suppose this is interwar technically. So, but you know what I mean. So from the end of the First World War through to
World War II, the prequel,
the outbreak of hostilities in World War II, there's a lot of, and in many respects, a lot of national conflicts, a lot of civil wars, risings, coups, all sorts kicking off.
You had Russia implode.
Yeah, Russia imploded. Ireland kicked off. China had multiple sort of war, sort of warlord fighting and stuff. And
Japan and Russia had their thing.
Yeah, Russia saying,
I think that was probably like one of the few international wars during the
interwar war. Like I say. So
I've been
painting some up. So rather than just, it's always difficult with just renders, especially with a new company. So these aren't painted by Ebro.
By the team Ebro, yeah.
But these are somebody had been painted.
They look great.
And it was like,
they look really good.
Separate heads on them, but
everything else looks to be one piece.
All the details coming out nicely as well.
I mean,
I think those arms look separate.
Might be separate.
Maybe. Yeah. They've got. You can see a little bit of seaming around them.
Great.
It'll be interesting to actually get some and see.
That's a lovely painting style too.
They've done a really, really good job.
That's if I want to see it from the tabletop. Yeah. If I go to tabletop size, you're not seeing fine levels of. That's probably about 28 mil there. You're not on my monitor anywhere. I don't care about your home. For me, that looks 28 mil. But you can see there's good contrast on it.
Yeah.
Without spending an age doing all sort of fine stuff. Anyway, back into that.
Really awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
Thought it'd be interesting to show off, like I say, incredibly new, just on the cusp. If you are ordering from them, the details of how to order, because they don't have like a digital shop, whatever you call those things, set up. So the details on how to order is on the website, but it's more or less get in contact with them, tell them what you want. They'll work out what it is and invoice you for it, and then they'll ship it, type of thing. So it's a little bit old school at the moment, but hopefully they'll develop more. I really want to see the international brigades.
Well, I mean, you're not cut down out of the back of a magazine.
Yeah, well, I don't mind that either. Yeah,
Jerry probably misses that.
Yeah, it was great. There was nothing wrong with it. Right, that's our Indie of the Week this week. We're going to take a quick swish, and when we come back, we'll be checking out some of the news we've missed while we were away.